let's get right to the NBA Finals, Demonte. Go ahead.
Yeah, we are just a few days away from your large Slovenian son being able to prove you correct, back up all those words you've been speaking for the last couple of weeks. But it's weird because Boston's at minus 220. This is not very weird, and Dallas is at plus 185 to win the series. Do you think Vegas has that wrong? You know, considering the path that the Mavericks had to take to get there, and the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, so I do think Vegas has this wrong. This would be the third biggest finals upset since the merger. The biggest upset, famously, 04 Pistons over the Lakers. The second biggest upset, a weird one, the 19 Raptors over the Warriors, but KD popped his Achilles, Clay blew out his knee. So that one, I don't want to say you can throw it out, but that wasn't a traditional upset. You know what I mean? Like unless you think the Raptors were going to beat the full-strength Warriors. And then this. Fact of the matter is this. Since the trade deadline, the Mavs have had the best defense in basketball, and with this starting lineup, they have played this year on a 65-win pace, which is what the Celtics played all year, a 64-65 win pace. So I do think that this series is relatively even, and if it's relatively even and one team has an all-time legendary player and the other team has Jason Tatum, then I'm going to go with the team with the all-time legendary player.
You don't think the series is relatively even, or did you say it is relatively even?
I said I do. I do think the series
okay.
I do think the series is relatively even. I think their regular season records would say it's not 64 wins versus 50 wins. But I don't look at the Mavs as that team. I look at the Mavs as the team they were once they got Gafford and PJ, and once Lively, you know what I mean, got more reps in his rookie season. So and early in the season they dealt without having Kyrie. I just really like the Mavs in this spot. And maybe I'll end up being wrong. And people are now, yesterday the internet got mad at Zach Lowe for saying I thought something obvious, which is Jason Tatum is somewhere between the 6th, 7th, 8th best player in basketball. That is not an indictment. It is just the truth. That now, can you win the title with that? Yeah. Is it super rare? Yes. So, now, does the best player always win? No. If that were the case, LeBron would be 10 for 10 in the finals. So obviously the best player
man win, though?
Well, I think that's a little, that doesn't always work with team sports, but it does work more often than not in the NBA. However, typically, if the other team's got demonstrably and clearly the best player, you need to have massive team advantage. And Vegas thinks the Celtics do. I do not. I think that there is a huge gap between Luka and Tatum. I think there is, right now, a minimal gap between Brown and Kyrie. Now, the next three best players in the series are Celtics, Kristaps, Drew, and Derek White. But the next three best players after that are Mavs in PJ, Gafford, and Lively.
You want to say Lively?
No, I'm leaving somebody out. Derek Jones Jr. could be on there, but that's right. And so and then you add to it what to me is a pretty clear, and maybe Celtics fans disagree with me here, coaching advantage for the Mavericks, and the fact that the Celtics have been hit or miss at home, while the Mavs have been absolute killers on the road, and I like the Mavs in this spot. And so I think plus 185 is crazy. I also think it's very on the board. Boston wins game one, which is why I might wait to bet the series, because if it's plus 185 right now, it'll be like plus 300 or plus 260 after Boston wins game one if they win game one, but I also might just pull the trigger and bet it beforehand. But I'm going to roll with this being Luka's moment. And that I don't think the Boston crowd is going to get to Kyrie, but I do think the Boston crowd is going to get Luka going. I think the Boston crowd going after Luka going after Kyrie is going to be good for Luka. I am curious, Demonte, however, your feelings going into this finals versus 2 years ago when your Celtics were playing the Warriors. And I have other questions Celtics related for you. But your feelings going into the finals since the Celtics are your team.
A lot more comfortable with them going into the series against the Mavericks. This is the one team out of the West. Like, I would have been more afraid to play Minnesota. And the Mavericks are, they're coming off. They had to play the Timberwolves, who openly came out and said that they were tired. Celtics aren't tired.
Yeah.
Celtics are deeper. I think that the Celtics can get this done in 6. Just way too deep. Kyrie and Luka, I don't think are going to be enough to win in a 7-game series. I think it's just too much. I think that the hookah and the cigarettes will catch up to Luka at some point. And this is the furthest Luka's ever been, obviously, right?
Yep. Yeah, he made the conference finals 2 years ago, but this is for everyone on the Mavs, except for Kyrie. This is their first finals. Meanwhile, for everyone on the Celtics, except for Kristaps, they've been here before, right?
Right.
And so I do think that plays in your favor to a degree. Actually, I don't think Al Horford's been here before, but he's played in a million playoff games because he was with the Celtics and then left and then came. Oh, no, he was there 2 years ago.
No, he was there
when
they played him in the Warriors. Yeah.
You're right. He was there, then left to Philly, then came back when they played for the season. So, yeah, everyone but Kristaps essentially has been there. Drew hasn't been there with Boston, but he's been there with Milwaukee, obviously.
Right.
Here's the... Gosh darn it. I was going to ask you another question.
You had another question
with Boston. Real quick, you mentioned Luke and Kyrie won't be enough. One thing that would be a little concerning for me if I'm Boston is this. The Mavs did beat the Thunder with Kyrie averaging 16 points per game. So they beat the number 1 seed in the West in 6 games and could have won that thing in 5. And Kyrie was, 16 points a game in that series. Now, do they need Luka to be brilliant? Obviously. But Luka is looking healthier as the playoffs go on. And that is my biggest prediction of this series is you, DeMonte, are going to leave midway through this series, have a visceral dislike for Luka. From the whining and the preening and the screaming and lighting
I'm already
your team
a little
on fire.
On alert for his. He cries. He cries.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, he does. After getting calls too, not just after not getting calls. He gets angry when he gets calls, when he doesn't get calls, the whole 9. What's your other question? Go ahead.
Do you think that Luka will leave this series the villain that he wants to be? Or you think he wants to be?
Yeah. That's a good Photoshop. I like that. That's Luka's Bane with a hookah. Yeah. I think he is going to be absolutely hated by the Celtic crowd, and I can't wait for it. What's your next follow-up?
If you think that Boston will win the finals, is a smart bet to bet Tatum at -115 or Brown at +650 for Finals MVP?
Oh, listen, at those odds, I like Brown way, way, way better. Now, I am curious who's going to have...
I get that.
Go ahead. Go.
No, I get that. I understand that. I was just with I think if the Celtics win the finals, it won't be because Jaylen Brown was the best player. No.
Well, he just won conference finals MVP. Now, maybe, listen, you might be right, but I don't
know what's going on with Jason Tatum, but I think he's going to turn it on at some point.
Well, and he was good in the conference finals, to be clear. It just Jaylen Brown hit the shot that forced overtime in game 1, and their numbers were close, right. And he was more efficient. I am curious, though, we'll talk about this more on Thursday. who's going to be Luka's primary defender? Because Drew is not big enough. It's going to have to be Tatum or Brown, and whomever it is, that is going to take a lot out of them energy-wise on the offensive end. Now, he'll probably hunt, switches and stuff anyway, but that'll be interesting to see. I also think, we'll talk about it more on Thursday. How Kristaps is going to look when he comes back is one of the biggest storylines of this series. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to get more from the show, and make sure to click the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just click the link in the description below.